Hey everyone, I'm Adam from Aleph Zero, and I'm going to talk about decentralized exchanges and about privacy. So first, to just fill the audience, I'd like to ask who have at least high-level understanding of what a zero-knowledge proof is. Okay, okay, that's good. I will do some very short introduction to the concept, although I'm not going to be digging too much into cryptography actually, but rather focus on high level, still technical, but high level designs of protocols using it. But first, let's say set up the stage. So we're going to talk about privacy, and privacy can come in several different flavors. So there's a concept of pseudonymity, which kind of can be taken as given on blockchains. So the idea is, as probably most of you know, is that when transacting on blockchain, we don't usually put our legal name there. We just are identified by some specific address. So whenever we do a transaction, what is actually seen for the outside observer is something like maybe at least a pointer works. Sorry. Oh, it works. Something like var. So yeah, some weird hash sends one if to some other weird hash. So it is some flavor of privacy, although it's worth noting that everything can be trackable and accountable here. So whenever, for example, we interact with someone, let's say I pay for a coffee in some specific place, anyone can then backtrack my transaction to my wallet and see the contents of my wallet, see my ownership status, and see basically all my transactions throughout the entire history if I'm using the same address. So it gives some anonymity, but very weak actually. Probably too weak to be used on the regular basis. Most people I know are using several different addresses and are trying to make them unconnected with each other, which is of course horrible user experience. So we're fighting for something better especially that most of people actually are using centralized exchanges as mixers to fund the new account with the token. So the second flavor, stronger, is anonymity. So this allows us to get rid of this particular pseudonyms. So we don't publish pseudonyms anymore when doing transactions. So what is seen is that, well, someone does something, someone sends, let's say, one if to someone. This is not very often seen, but this is, for example, what is offered by tools like Tornado Cash and general old school mixers on Ethereum, or general mixers. And the last flavor is privacy, where, well, whenever we interact with a blockchain, the only thing that is seen is that something happens. So, like, no contents of the transactions are published. So, for example, Monero, Zcash, platforms like that are offering full privacy. Mixers on Ethereum and general mixers are usually offering only anonymity. And usually the trick is that privacy is pretty, well, maybe not simple, but it's already done for regular transfers, and it's super hard to make private smart contracts. So right now there is a ongoing effort to make broader and broader classes of contracts private. And today I'm going to talk about specifically decentralized exchanges, which are contracts at which we can exchange one type of token to the other type of token. Nice. Okay, so I'm going to introduce a Schilder primitive without talking about cryptography. So this is basically what was introduced first on Zcash and then replicated by many projects on Ethereum. Again, the Tornado Cash has a very bad PR right now, but, well, it was the first one to replicate it. Right now, there is, for example, a Railgun, which is doing very similar stuff while trying to be more compliant, or just compliant. And the idea here is that normally, when looking at the blockchain, we have this we have this kind of graph. So there are some addresses, and we can see which address interacted with which address. So as I said before, usually these are not names, but some specific cryptographic addresses. But well, this could be actually translated to names. So in the regular graph, we see who are sending token to whom, and then there is this box inside. So this box is a shielder. So what's happening inside are also transfers. The difference is that no one from the outside can see what's going on there. So like I drew some graph here, but well, it's not seen for the outside observer. So for example, when it comes to this transfer between Greg and Dylan, only Greg and Dylan are actually aware of this thing happening. So yeah, how it's done, well, it's crypto magic. I'm not gonna go into the details. But this is the crypto primitive, which is known for, I don't know, maybe 8 years. So it's like for blockchain world, it's actually very old. We are also doing this in Aleph Zero. We call it Shielder. It's not our idea to call it Shielder. It's generally the name of this primitive. Sorry. And okay, so how it was used usually until say 1 or 2 years ago was to just conceal the transaction graph. And this is how it is used on Zcash still. And now, what's I think more contemporary work is that when you have your tokens deposited in the shielder, you can actually interact with smart contract from the shielder, which means that, well, let's say you had one ETH inside. So what you can do is you can make a transfer from the shielder to the decentralized exchange, let's say to Uniswap, exchange it to DAI, for example, and redeem your DAI back again in the shielder. So this way, you can think about the shielder as your private wallet. So basically, you can keep your tokens at the shielder at all times. And this way, all your actions will always be anonymous, meaning that no pseudonym or definitely never your name will be visible on the blockchain. And yet, you will be able to use entire DeFi. You can start any interaction with smart contract from the shielder. The caveat here is that the interaction itself will be seen. I mean, it's right now not really possible to make a private call to smart contract. So smart contract needs to understand what's going on. I mean, it needs to know that, well, there is one ETH coming in because it needs to compute how many DAI does it need to give back. What's actually important here is that this DEX, it can actually be Uniswap. It doesn't need to be any kind of like specific privacy enhancing smart contract. The entire trick here is that is to make the Shielder API so simple and so useful that you can use normal smart contract from inside of a Shielder. So again, this is something which is already done. This is something what Railgun is doing, as I said before. This is something that we're doing as well. And I think there are several other projects which are targeting this case as well. What is still a bit missing here is that, as I said, this is public. So this gives us anonymity. It does not give us privacy. And for economic reasons, actually, it's sometimes useful to have these things private. For example, because for some exotic tokens, the sole fact that we're selling specific amount can reveal who we are. I mean, if we are trying to sell bigger amount of exotic token, it can be pretty clear that, for example, we are some early adopter or even some specific early adopter. So that's the entire idea of, for example, dark pool is to allow users to sell the token without announcing it before the sale. So the market doesn't react before the sale is concluded. So I had several slides to show why it's hard to make it private. So the flow of the presentation will be that first I will try to give some intuition why it's tricky to conceal these two numbers, and then I'll show two specific designs which are right now explored, and then I will go a bit deeper into one of them, which we are actually pursuing. Sorry. Okay. So how Shielder basically works is that this is simplification, but you can think about this way that what we do is we send one ether from one address of ours, and we send to the Shielder hash of some specific password. So then, if we want to redeem the token from different address, which is not connected to the first one, what we do is we send a magical cryptographic proof that we know the password, and then the Shielder gives us our tokens back. So what's important here is that we can send this proof from any other unconnected address. So, and the second thing is that we do not reveal the password. So there is no way to connect this action to this action, and hence to connect this address to this address. And okay, it works sometimes. Okay, so there is no way to connect this address to this address, and yet the Shielder actually works fairly, meaning that for every deposit there can be only one withdrawal. So this is nice primitive in the sense that it gives us anonymity, but why it works is that the zero knowledge proof primitive basically allows us to prove something, to prove knowledge of some specific secret, which is the password in this case. But it works mostly in the case where this secret is owned by a singular user. So it allows us to make to generate proofs of type I know X such that something, which can then be generalized to I own X. This is the trick that's done in the Shielder. So what it allows to make ownership status private, ownership by users. What it doesn't really allow is to make smart contract state private, because, well, smart contracts is something that needs to be, a smart contract state needs to be known by every validator. So, well, basically, if something in, let's say, Ethereum is known by every validator or every block producer, it's basically known by everyone. I mean, there is so many block producers that if a secret is known by every of them, it's known by entire world. So basically, this primitive does not allow to make private decentralized exchange or any other private smart contract for that matter. I think I'm going to skip this slide. This is kind of the same thing again. And there are right now two main ideas of how to make at least partially private DEX. Partially private meaning, well, both of these paths have big caveats. The first one is peer-to-peer. So I think the best known project in this category is Renegade Finance right now, which closed funding I think 2 months ago and published a paper. They don't have a working solution yet. So the idea here is that, well, it's peer-to-peer trading. So we, let's say, own some tokens, and we will connect to other peers and try to check whether they are interested in opposite trade. So let's say we want to sell one ETH or USD for some specific price, and then we are connecting to other peers in the network, and we are running a very intricate private protocol which allows us to check whether they are interested in the opposite trade without revealing the trade we are interested in. So it's kind of, you can think about it a bit maybe like a Tinder. So like we can give a match, and only if someone else gives us a match, the match is revealed. So let's say if we want to trade in one direction and the counterparty is not interested in this trade, no one is informed about anything. Kind of like in Tinder. So in theory, it gives us full privacy, meaning that if we are selling something, only the buyer will know that someone sold it. So like this, it cannot get any better than that. But, well, this is only in theory, because in practice, it's slow and expensive, meaning that even the interaction with a single peer is pretty actually expensive. And what's way, way worse is that we actually, as traders, need to remain online until we find the trade counterparty, which can take hours or days in case there is no counterparty in some particular moment. So, well, perhaps some professional traders may do that, but what is done, and well, not done really, but what is proposed by Renegade in practice is that the traders can find kind of like a representative. So they reveal their intention to some third party, and this third party then trades in their account. So, well, while in theory it has full privacy, in practice it's not, because, well, we need to reveal our intent to a third party, which is, well, not necessarily trusted. And well, the entire thing is also pretty complex and slow, and doesn't actually scale all that well, because if we have, say, 10,000 traders in the network, well, we need to connect with each of them to check whether they are interested in the opposite trade. So you can imagine it probably takes significant time. It's hard to tell right now because, as I said, there is no working solution for it yet, just the idea. But like asymptotically, it doesn't scale all that great. The other path that is being explored, it's not the like official name, but I call it aggregated reveals. And the idea here is that we reveal something, but we never reveal a singular trade. So what actually happens is that we publish encrypted order. Then this order gets aggregated with orders of another users by using homomorphic encryption. And only the aggregate, after enough orders are aggregated into it, only the entire aggregate is revealed. So I'm going to have some examples of the next slide. But generally, you can think about it this way, that if we are selling 1 ETH and someone else is selling 2 ETH and someone yet another is selling 3 ETH, what's going to be revealed is that in total, there are 6 ETH being sold. So, so it's not possible to track us, but it's possible to generally tell what's going on the market. Well, the benefits are that the user experience is good, actually, because we just need to publish our order once and we can turn off the computer. We don't need to remain online to connect to some peers. It's much faster due to both, and it scales much better. I mean, even with 10,000 users, well, we can aggregate 10,000 orders and we reveal only the aggregate. So it scales much better than here, where we need to connect to each of the users. The downside is, of course, limited privacy, meaning that in this example of super exotic token being sold, well, even publishing the aggregate can actually reveal that there is some whale selling some pretty exotic token, which can still point to us. By the way, I should have said that at the beginning, but if anyone had any question, well, feel free to interrupt me. I'm not very good at providing silence breaks for questions. So yeah, really feel free to raise your hand or. Yes. Yes, I think you can think about it this way. So, like in centralized exchanges, you see the order book which is not divided into users. You see the aggregated orders. So. It depends. I mean, it could be both ways, but right now I'm aware of two projects going this way. One is us, and the other is Penumbra, and in both of these cases, it's one transaction. Or no, in our case, it's actually a bit more complex. It's gonna be explained on the following slide. But like the economic effect is as it would have been one transaction. Okay, so the particular design, which is one of the two designs, and this particular design is a design of an order book, not of a DEX. So the difference is that instead of doing market trades, instead of trading instantly, the basic interface is that the user places an order for some specific price and waits for the order to be filled. This is actually a good match for this kind of aggregated privacy because, well, the waiting is there anyway, so there is no like UX problem that you need to wait for enough trades to be aggregated. I mean, like you assume that you'll be waiting anyway because you're waiting for the specific price to be reached. Like here, I'm going to provide like a rough design, and on the following slide, I focus on a specific fragment on this design and on how it affects the economy of the trade. So the general idea is that once we are, say, sitting inside of a shielder, for example, we have 40 USDT inside of a shielder, what we can do is we can place an order which will be value encrypted, meaning that what will be visible on blockchain is that, well, someone, which is anonymous, wants to sell some USDT for A0. A0 is our token, I just using it. And the price that user wants to get is 1.3. So, well, you can think that this is actually revealing, but it's pretty easy to conceal this order book but by placing multiple empty orders. So like this X can be 0, this Y and Z also can be 0. We are planning to actually run a bot which will be placing empty orders for multiple thresholds. So the order book is like always full, and it's hard to tell which orders are empty and which are not. So like we can assume that at all times there is some non-empty order book. And once upon a time, we are calling to the price oracle to give us the current market price, and we are taking the orders which are happy with this price. So like from this side, we are taking the orders above this price, and from the other side, we are taking orders below this price. Well, we don't know what these orders are yet. Like this is just VX and this is like DC and A. So, but still, we are aggregating it, as this is homomorphic encryption. That's something we can do. Side note: this is only additively homomorphic encryption, so the only thing we can do is addition here. The like more general is actually too expensive, but additive one is pretty fast, and we don't need multiplication anyway. So we're happy with addition. Then what happens is, well, this is homomorphic encryption. Well, the obvious question is, all right, so who holds the key to the encryption? So the answer is that there is a specific committee, and then only once in the entire pipeline the committee is using this key. This is to reveal the entire batch. So let's say the batch is revealed and it's like 390 USDT and 127 A0 being traded. I think the numbers here are all. Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that's a good question. So who is the committee? The idea here is that they don't need to be specifically trusted. It's enough that it's big enough. Like 10 to 20 is probably big enough. And the economic idea behind the committee is that if any of the committee members would ever attempt to reveal anything else than the entire batch, there is a way to slash this person. I mean, like, actually the decryption is non-interactive in the sense that what actually happens in the process of decryption is that each of the committee members publishes like specific cryptographic data. So if you ever show like this like data published by this node, which should not have been published according to the protocol, this node is immediately flashed and you are getting this. So like they are heavily incentivized to not reveal anything else but the entire batch. Yes? Sure. I mean, like if they all collaborate, of course, they can do it. Although if at least one of them is honest, then this one of them will be a whistleblower and all the rest will be flashed and the whistleblower will get all the things. So like, yes, in theory, if all of them collaborate and trust each other well enough that they know that none of them will be a whistleblower, then yes, they can reveal anything. Okay, but well, like yeah, we assume that it's hard. This committee actually can be pretty big. The only downside of this committee being too big is that every time this thing needs to be decrypted, we are publishing a single group element per committee member on chain. So like eventually it's gonna be expensive if we go for like I don't know 500. So yeah, the batch gets decrypted. Then what happens is that, well, there are some people which would like to trade USDT to A0, some people would like to trade A0 to USDT, and well, we chose the single price, so well, we can kind of do internal matching, we can do internal trades, or specifically add the market price, which is actually very beneficial because usually when you trade in the market, you never trade at the market price because there are front runners, like there is price impact in the exchanges. Like there are multiple factors which contribute to the fact that like people always trade at the price which is lower or worse than the spot price. So here, part of the batch can be traded perfectly, and what happens next is, well, we always end up with a batch which has 0 in one direction and some number in the other direction. And this thing goes to the Dutch auction, which I'll explain on the following slide. And then, sorry, the numbers are shifting here. I forgot to update the numbers at the previous slide. These ones are better to work with the following. So after entire batch is traded, it goes back to the shielder, and what we guarantee is that every user trading in the left direction will have the same price, and every user trading in the right direction will have the same price. So it doesn't matter whether your trade was included in the internal part of the trading or the Dutch auction. Like it all evens out in the end. So like summing up the rough design, it never reveals individual orders. It's easy or like relatively easy to obfuscate the order book by placing empty orders. And there are these internal in-batch trades at optimal price, which is the economic benefit of doing stuff this way. And right now, like the thing which is kind of unclear still is like what exactly happens in this Dutch auction. So this is what I'll explain next. So say that we have this promised price, which is 1A0 equals 1.3 USDT. This is the price that was queried from the price oracle, and the system kind of makes a promise to the users that they will never get the worse price than that. So let's say that this is the still untraded part of the batch. So we are running an auction where in each block we are accepting worse and worse trades. So at the first block, when the auction starts, we are accepting only this kind of trades. We are right here, we are buying A0. So, well, the cheaper we buy it, the better. So in the first block, we want to buy at the price 1.26, which is obviously better than 1.3. So what we do is we announce that there is an auction, and we allow any trader to actually fill the order. So let's say that some trader comes, and it works. Not sure how many of you knows what a flash loan is, but it works as the flash loan works. So basically, if a trader claims that he's able to actually reach this price that is demanded, the tokens are given to the trader, and the trader is expected to return some specific amount of A0. If the trader does not return this amount of A0, the entire action is rolled back. So this is kind of like, we're giving him funds, but if he doesn't give us back the A0, well, we are taking this funds back. This is blockchain magic, and the idea here is that we are able to make several actions as an atomic action. So, so either all of them succeed, or they are rolled back and none of them succeed. So we are borrowing, kind of borrowing or lending, or we are giving this trader, in this example, 12.6 USDT. Well, we assume that he's doing some kind of trade. Maybe he goes to Uniswap or some other DEX, he does some fancy arbitrage, or I don't know. He's got his ways of exchanging this USDT for A0, and he gives 10 A0 back. So, like 12.6 USDT for 10 A0, this is exactly the price that we want. Well, it should have been, I mean, it exactly should have been better. Sorry for that, but like, let's assume that he did the trade as he should. Then there is next block where we are accepting slightly worse prices, but still better than the price we promised to the end user. So it's 1.27. Still, again, some perhaps the same, perhaps other trader comes, and again does the trade. This time he takes 12.7 USDT and gives also 10 A0 back. If he could have taken everything. But, well, maybe the market is not deep enough to cater for such a big trade at such a good price. This is often the case, that someone is able to trade at a very good price, but only the specific amount. So, so this is why the auction continues. So at the third block, well, yet another trader comes, and so on and so on. And the auction ends at the promised price. I mean, we never go with a price worse than the one we promised to do. So in this example, we actually sell everything we had to sell. So after 5 steps, everything is concluded. So not sure whether the colors are visible on the slide. Did I? Okay. There again. So in total, what happens is that we gave away 64 USDT. This is exactly as much as we meant to sell, and we got back 50 A0. So, well, doing simple math, the question is, all right, so like, what's the price that we actually got, like in total? So, well, in total, 1 A0 traded for 64 divided by 50, which is 128. And this is very nice. I mean, well, perhaps not surprising because, well, we've all seen that some of these things have been traded at prices better than the one we promised. But, well, the conclusion is that in this part of the DEX operation, we generally get the price which is better than the price that we promised to end user. And summing the things up, the outcome of entire batch trading is the following. So it's going in 2 steps. The first step is the internal trading, which is at the optimal price. And the second step is Dutch auction, which is only in one direction, but is always even better price than the market. So, or than the promised price. So, there are some numbers here. I think you need to trust me. It's pretty hard to follow this. I mean, there are elementary calculations, but actually numbers are not all that small. So here is that we start with a batch with 623 USDT and 430 zero, and we do internal trade. So some of this A0 that was meant to be sold, we assume that they are sold. So like in the kind of reserves or like the outcome of the batch, we have 430 A0, and we have some USDT. How much USDT? Well, the same price, like we use price 1.3, so it's actually 505. As I said, you probably need to trust me on that, but I use the calculator. And then the remaining part of the batch goes to the Dutch auction. So we've seen what was the outcome of the Dutch auction. The outcome was that we bought 50 A0. So 50 A0 gets added here. So what's the final outcome of this entire thing? So the final outcome is that we started with this batch and ended with this amount of tokens. So the guys who've been selling USDT for A0, they sold 623 USDT for 480 A0. So they bought A0 at the price 1.2979, which is below 1.3, which is very nice. And the guys who've been selling A0, sorry, this is a mistake. They have 430, and they got 559 USDT, and they sold at the price which is higher than 1.3. I mean, probably it would be slightly different if I would put the correct number for 430, but it would still definitely be higher than 1.3. So, summing up, we are always getting prices which are better than the one we promised. Probably some of you are asking themselves right now, like, all right, so how is that even possible when this particular design allows to trade at the price which are better than the market price? So, of course, it does not. I mean, it does not allow to trade at prices better than market prices. That would be like a perpetuum mobile, or I don't know, some weird economic paradox. So what actually happens is that we are never taking the orders to the batch which are exactly at the price we promised. We always leave ourselves like a leeway. So if what we get from the price oracle is 1.3, let's say then that we are taking the orders which are selling at 1.305 or something like that, and buying at 1.295 or something like that. So we have this small leeway which allows us to conduct the Dutch auction. That concludes my talk. Yeah. So if there are any remaining questions, that's I think this moment to ask them, and if not, I'm gonna be available for, well, at least until the meeting ends. So feel free to approach me anytime. Yes. So yes, you need to. There are basically every user action is a blockchain transaction. So if you want to create the order, yes, you create a transaction. This transaction publishes the order on the chain. It's encrypted, but it's a transaction. So we need to pay for it. If you want to cancel order, yes, that's a transaction. What's even more, if you want to claim what have been traded. So let's say you put an order, it went into the batch, and it was traded. Unfortunately, how the shielder works, and it's not only in our case, it's everywhere, also like in the other products I mentioned. These tokens are not immediately available in your shielder. You need to have create a specific action like claiming the tokens that have been traded. So like in total, like there are 2 transactions per order. So you need to place an order and then claim the outcome. No, we are actually building on our own blockchain. Sorry, I should have started with that. We are layer 1, and this is one of the products that we will. Railgun is on Ethereum network, though Penumbra is in Cosmos ecosystem, and they are also layer 1. And generally, I don't think you're gonna see this kind of designs on Ethereum anytime soon, because that would be pretty expensive. I mean, not only because the throughput on Ethereum is low, Also because these things are using very specific crypto primitives, and if you do not support them on the chain level, like it's gonna be super hard. I mean, super expensive to compute them. Yes, this example I shown is that the entire batch gets traded. This is not always the case. It may be the case that only the internal trade passes, or maybe someone participates in the Dutch auction, but like not entire part is being traded. This is okay, like the design supports it. Then some of the orders are just partially filled, and the orders gets updated that, well, half of this order is already trade, or I don't know, 30% of this order is already trade. This like homomorphic encryption in the orders allows us to update them for what part of it was already traded. Sorry, can you say louder? Yeah, so I'll go back. I mean, I don't know whether I actually covered it, but like this slide is probably best to explain it. So as I said, Shielder is well known, but actually pretty complex cryptographic primitive. The rough idea is as here. So how do we know that we don't claim the same thing twice? You can think about it this way. It's slightly different, but you can think about this way, that this proof that I know password is always the same. So like if someone else provides the same proof, well, then you know that, well, he's actually trying to double spend. What actually happens is that there is a concept of a nullifier. So like what actually happens is whenever you're taking something out of a shielder, you're publishing like a very specific, let's say, the other hash of the password. So like whenever someone else would try to claim using the same password, well, he would need to publish the same thing. So like it would be seen on the blockchain that he's double spending. So sorry if I'm explaining it messy. It's actually pretty complex.
Adam later on. Thank you very much, Adam, for now.